Welcome to Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth, the podcast where we explore the beautiful, messy and transformative magic that happens when we dare to go within. I'm your host, Robin Harris, and in each episode we'll dive into real, honest stories from people who've faced their fears, embraced their vulnerabilities and discovered unexpected growth in their personal lives, careers, or businesses. This is a space for deep listening, open hearts, and soul-nourishing conversations. Because when we meet ourselves in our rawest moments, that's often where our greatest wisdom starts. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to another episode of Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth. And today I am absolutely delighted to have with me Lyn Lapworth of Eco for All. Welcome, Lyn.
Thank you, Robin. It's really wonderful to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
Yes, me too. Lyn and I connected through networking, and as you can imagine, with a business title like Eco for All, wild well-being is right in there, wanting to know more. And I'm going to start by introducing Lyn. She is a wife and mum of two, and her children are the inspiration behind her business, which she founded 5 years ago to help people make eco-friendly choices without feeling overwhelmed. As a teenager, she discovered uncomfortable truths about everyday products and unethical practices that harm the planet and animals. And this was an awakening which shaped the path that she has followed ever since. For more than 20 years now, Lyn has focused on reducing her environmental impact, and Eco for All is a natural extension of that mission and a true passion project. She understands that the busyness of life can make sustainable living feel out of reach, so she shares simple, affordable ways to be kinder to the planet. Because the more of us who make small steps, the bigger the collective impact. And this was something that really hit me, Lyn, when we met, because I think there are so many of us who are feeling overwhelmed in life generally.
Of course, there's so much craziness going on, isn't there?
Oh, isn't there just? And it seems to be more and more and more all of the time. And it's, it's all over the news, which we have now 24/7 because of mobile phones and devices. So with that kind of background stress level being quite high anyway, and then wanting to look after the planet, wanting to do things that are kinder to animals, not use those products maybe that aren't so good for the planet, the animals and ourselves.
Yes.
But it's so challenging to try and keep up to date with everything that's out there and all the different ingredients in products and how they're tested and everything. So I love that this is what you do through Eco for All. But before we get into our conversation, I just want to ask the 3 questions that I ask every visitor to enable the audience to really tune in and know what's coming up so that they're all primed and ready. To start off with, what makes your story relatable for others?
I'm a busy working mum. Basically, I mean, my children are, I've got a 14-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. And, we keep hearing about global warming and environmental damage and microplastics in the air and all of these things. And I'm kind of thinking, my kids have a potentially amazing future ahead of them. Who knows what they want to go on and achieve. And in the back of my head is the mum guilt because I'm like, well, I've been part of the problem that has contributed to the state of the planet that they're going to inherit. It's not their doing, it's my doing, it's our doing, and older generations, because we didn't know any better. But now we do. So right from the, well before my children were born, I was on a bit of a mission to originally source out more ethical brands because I was always an animal lover. But there's all sorts of issues that we want to avoid if we can. It's just knowing where to start.
Absolutely. And that's kind of my motivation, initial motivation as well, because I love nature. I love animals. I grew up with animals and not wanting to use products, therefore, that have been tested on animals and then becoming aware of the environment and how those microplastics in the water system and how they are causing such chaos. But also, I loved what you kind of just touched on there, that this isn't about blame.
Mm.
We did what we did because we didn't know any better. But now that we are knowing better, it's how can we make those changes without them overwhelming us and without that guilt that just pushes? I hear people say, I just don't even know where to start. And I feel overwhelmed and I feel that it's a lost cause. We don't want people to think it's a lost cause because that's powerlessness. And then, well, what can I do as a lone individual? What can I do? But going
Oh
on
my
then,
gosh. Oh my
yes, because I
gosh.
could get completely sidetracked before we've even finished the first three questions.
I
What,
know.
who
Okay.
do you feel will gain the most from listening into this conversation?
Oh, well, I mean, particularly anybody that is maybe feeling a little bit guilty or a little bit overwhelmed. Um, Eco anxiety. I mean, oh my goodness, 1 in 6 at least of us have eco anxiety because, like you say, it's the powerlessness. It's like this is so big. This is global. This is like, out of my hands. What possible difference can I make? I'm just one person except that you're not. Because I mean, I'm in such a privileged position because doing what I do, yes, I'm very aware of all the climate science, I'm very aware of all the environmental damage, but also because of the work that I do, I get people volunteer like every week almost. Oh, I did this. Oh, I bought this from Vinted. Oh, made this swap. I recycled that, and and I thought of you. And there's just everybody is volunteering information. I don't guilt trip anybody. That's not how I work. It's about support, kindness, and empowering people. Really, that's my angle. So yes, sorry, I've probably gone off a tangent, but yeah, there is absolutely everybody can do something and should do something because the collective impact that we're all having and continue to have numbers are growing, and it's hundreds of millions of people globally. Genuinely, it's huge.
It's just so exciting and encouraging. And just as you were speaking, the passion comes across. And also, I get that sense of you start,
Mm,
just make a start, whatever that start might be.
yeah.
But that gets exciting because maybe it helps you connect with other people and you see that actually I'm not on my own. So it's not just me, one little individual against the corporates. I'm actually part of this collective and we're coming together and we're making a difference. And then it's rippling out and you can begin to see how it's expanding. So it becomes that self-fulfilling, machine that's just your motivation keeps you going, and once you start to, oh, I'm going to add this because I'm already used to doing this has become quite easy to me, and now I want to add something else in, and I've just learned about this thing over here, and
That's
it snowballs
exactly
from
it.
there.
You totally hit the nail on the head. I mean, it is, we all hear about gosh, I've got to stop flying. I've got to have a vegan diet. I've got to install solar panels. And, on all of these things, it's like, that's just too difficult. Potentially that's just too hard. I don't have the budget. So I can't do anything. And you're powerless. And then the eco anxiety kicks in because, of the impact that it's going to have on us all. But the small things, the changes, the tiny changes to everyday habits, that's where we need to start because, like you say, you can crack that. You're like, oh, okay, I can put the lid on my pan when I'm boiling water on the hob, just to make the water boil a little bit more quickly, and then I can set the timer to switch the power off 2 or 3 minutes early, depending on what I'm cooking, and leave the food in the boiling water. without the energy being used. You know, let's say that's 5 minutes power saved a day. That's 24 hours worth of energy you're saving in a year. That's one tiny change. We can all put the lid on our pan when we're boiling water. So then you kind of like, okay, great, I can do that. That's my like daily habit. What next? What next? My confidence is rising now because I did something that made a difference. What next? And that's going to save me money too, you know?
And
So
I love we're getting tips already, and
there
we
you
haven't
go.
started the
So
conversation
much where that
proper.
came from.
Fantastic. And I know that you didn't actually set out to make this a business.
Mhm.
That kind of came about almost by accident. But can you take us back to the moment when you realized that you could no longer ignore this passion that's burning inside of you? But also, what fears or doubts came up when you decided, I'm going to take action?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. So before I had my children, I was employed. So running a business, starting a business was never in my plan. Um, until my youngest started school. And within the first month of him starting school, I ended up having a conversation outside the school gates with another of the school eco mums because I was one of the school eco mums. And she made this comment that she was finding it a bit expensive trying to be more eco-friendly. One sentence, that one sentence. And yes, she was talking about buying organic food, but it was something that I'd heard before. So it was already in my psyche. And I spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to ignore this comment, but I couldn't. I couldn't shake it from my head. I knew that there were ways that people could save money and be more eco-friendly. So I literally just couldn't ignore that comment. I couldn't ignore this voice that I know I could help people. So yeah, I kind of took a friend for lunch who had already started her own business and was have she got a really really successful business. Took her for lunch and was like, I think I need to set a business up. So it kind of went from there, but I launched into it without really knowing what I was letting myself in for. I didn't really come up with a plan, a strategy. I just launched into it and just really kind of spent quite a few months hosting sessions, having like walking, talking kind of sessions with people. And my first client was the other mum that made that comment. So that was really kind of quite a nice full circle moment. My mum signed up and insisted on paying me. So it kind of went from there. And then I found networking. Then the imposter syndrome kicked in. Then the kind of, I really don't know what I'm doing. All of these women have their act together, trying not to swear there. They all have, they know what they're doing. They have their goals. They have their strategies. I have absolutely no clue about what I'm doing. So that was like, took a while for me to, I mean, we never really properly shift that, do we? But I'm a lot further along, thanks to actually the support and the encouragement of those same ladies, actually, because the more you have those conversations, the more it's like, actually, no one's really got it all together. So, yeah, that was quite a big hurdle to overcome, the imposter syndrome. But, I went from when I started networking and feeling that kind of I can't say anything because everyone will realize I'm a fraud to within 18 months I was standing on stage at the Ideal Home Show delivering a talk. So that's the power of the confidence they instilled in me.
That was actually what I was about to ask you about. You did, within 18 months, go
Mhm.
from that feeling of, I'm out of my depth and everybody else knows what they're doing. I haven't a
Yeah.
clue. Without realizing that we're all swans, aren't we? We're
Mm.
trying to look like we've got it all under control because I'm supposed to be here as the person who's guiding you along the path. So I need to look like what I'm doing. Whereas underneath, we feel like we're paddling frantically.
This is it.
But within that 18 months, you were at the Ideal Home Show, speaking to the people there. Looking back now, what personal changes had to happen inside of you before those external opportunities would manifest and you would feel, yes, I can
Mm.
actually go for this?
So, I think I'd set myself like at the start of the year, I'd set this intention where I was just going to say yes to all of the opportunities. And within six months of starting with a particular networking group, I was introduced to a lady called Penny Moises, who runs her own show, which at the time was called the Clean and Tidy Home Show. It's now called the Home Life and You Show. And she just loved the whole concept of my work. So she invited me down to the Excel, which was where my very first ever public speaking gig was. And I was interviewed um, for her show about my work. And it was off the back of my appearance at the Clean and Tidy Home Show that I think the Ideal Home Show found out about me. So, the kind of gentle introduction really was being interviewed on stage because you get to see the questions, you get to prepare your answers. It's a lot less kind of pressurized, really, than delivering a 30-minute talk that I did at the Ideal Home Show.
It's still quite a big leap for
Mhm.
many people to think. And yes, it is nice when you have somebody who's drawing the questions out for you and you can maybe forget about the audience because you're focused on them. But still, it's quite a leap for somebody who hasn't even run a business up to 18 months ago. And now all of a sudden, there you are at the Ideal Home Show. But you talked before about that feeling of imposter syndrome. When you look back now, what was the story that was playing out in your head at that time? And what helped you begin to see and to trust that the message you were sharing actually mattered and that it needed to be heard, you needed to speak it?
Yeah, so the ladies that I started to talk with through networking were like, immediately interested. And when I started working with them and you kind of, you get the feedback, you get the testimonials. Um, I originally was working as like a one-to-one basis, but eventually started to, converted that to groups because actually that's quite powerful. And my very first ever group, one of the ladies, before we'd actually even started working together, so part of the program that I run, clients get access to me for their kind of, I call it personal eco shopper service. And this particular client had her daughter's birthday coming up. She wanted to do decorations, but avoiding plastic. So I just sent her a few links. I was like, how about this? How about this? What about that idea? Bunting and table decorations, all of that. And she was just like, this is genius. And immediately went off and nominated me for a Muddy Stiletto, which I thought was a wind up when it came through, but she was genuine. And when you kind of hear feedback like that, where you just like this is kind of my regular thought process, it's like I know where to do the research, and this lady was just so blown away by how helpful that was to her. But yet to me, it felt quite easy and obvious, but it's just that's to me, because I've lived it for so long. So yeah, when you start to get feedback and, once the program had finished, the same client was like, this is life changing. And that's quite a big comment. So things like that start to seep in. And there's just been, yeah, so many amazing comments really. And the people that you work with, that matters, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But also, I think, and given that this is Small Business Week here in the UK at the
It
moment,
is. It is.
1st of June 2026,
Yes.
1st to 7th is Small Business Week. So those people who greatly appreciate what we offer and are happy to shout about it and pass on the word they mean so much, don't they, for us as a small business? Because they're kind of our cheerleaders, our support crew. And it really is something that well, at least I certainly feel deep gratitude for when people say words like that, write a card, share a testimonial, because, I always think you didn't have to do that.
Mm.
You did that out of the kindness of your heart and because hopefully I really did make a difference in your experience for whatever that might be. For me, well-being, for you, eco information. But also just to touch on what you said about, well, this was everyday stuff to me.
Mm.
And I think part of that imposter syndrome is often that we think, but everybody must know this. How can I stand
Totally.
up? Yeah. How can I stand up and say I'm an expert? This is general knowledge. But realizing, which you get from things like networking and that wonderful feedback,
Mm.
that no, it's not. And even for those who know parts of it, they don't know all of it. You share it in your particular way. And people need reminders as well. I know I've gone to courses that are very similar to things that I've done before, maybe even with the same person, because I need a reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, carry on. I think I
Yeah, and
interrupted.
just that affirmation that this is still relevant in your work because things move on and they change. And sometimes I've bought products that I've gone back to buy them again and they've gone.
Mm.
And then where do I get a replacement? So turning to somebody like you, can you give me some clues on, where do I find this? You said bunting, party goods.
Mm.
Where do I find those? So it's great to have somebody like you, a personal eco shopper, in your corner.
Yeah, I mean it's quite unique as far as I can tell. The program in its entirety is designed for very specific reasons. So it's a year start to finish, which kind of is like, oh my God, that's a long time. Well, A, it absolutely flies by, but B, we only have one session a month because we're all busy. So, but also when you kind of drip feed information over a longer period of time, that means those changes, that kind of habit forming is more likely to stick. So there's real kind of science behind it, I suppose. And the neuroscience about the small changes that, because our brains are designed to keep us safe, doesn't want to do the big stuff. The big stuff feels too hard. But the smaller things that we can do, that like that we talked about earlier, kind of slips under the radar. So our brains are much less resistant. So there's real kind of neuroscience behind how it all works. But, having me on hand as your personal eco shopper for a year, there's quite a lot of value in that alone.
Absolutely. But I love what you've brought up there about that neuroscience. And we're so much more aware now about our sense of psychological, emotional, inner safety.
Mm.
And we started talking about that sense of overwhelm and how the information that's available and whether it's information, misinformation, and we can
Mhm.
never, as uh, people who are just coming to this field, maybe initially we're not sure. Is it right for me to use products that have palm oil when it says it's it says it's sustainable? Is it really? Those kinds of things. And there are so many products out there that are greenwashed or
Mhm.
even like Ecover,
Yeah.
however that's pronounced. People think, oh, that's green. And then you look into it a little bit further and you think, maybe it's not quite so green
Yeah, they sold out, didn't they?
as it
Eco
is
for
in
a
theory.
method.
The Body Shop, another one that we thought
Mhm.
was leading the way with all of this. And
Yeah.
then again,
Small, wild, wild's the most recent one, isn't it? Really sad, really sad. It does make you
yeah,
question their motives. And then in America, there's a brand called is it Everlane, I think, that have just sold out to Shein, all all businesses. So it does happen. However, conversely, there is a term called green hushing. So greenwashing we know about, it's businesses claiming to be more sustainable than perhaps they really are. Green hushing is actually the term for businesses that are doing more than they're talking about. And this happens a lot because it's quite a sad reason, actually, because They don't want to be called out for not doing it perfectly. It's quite sad. But what that means is that there is a lot more happening with big businesses trying to be as sustainable as possible, well, as sustainable as practically possible, given budgets and, other constraints. Um, that, it's just a lot more happening than we were perhaps aware of. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think even as individuals, we experience that sense of, but I want to get it perfect. I just don't know where to start. And it can feel that it goes back to that sense of overwhelm. And then maybe we get into that kind of analysis paralysis and we end up not going forward, which is why I think it's so good that there is somebody like yourself who can be a personal eco shopper and you can have that year long slowly, gently building it up over time that it is then going to be sustainable.
Yes.
So it's great to have that, but I can understand why organizations would potentially feel nervous. So it would be great, I don't know how, but great to encourage them to speak up more and that they don't have to be perfect. What I think is much more important is to be accountable and to be conscious of of the choices we're making and why, and open to, well, if I'm not getting it right, tell me. And if there's a reason why I've gone down that route rather than any other constraints, budget, whatever it might be, like you say, that I'll be open about that.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is this word perfect,
Mm.
actually, when it comes to sustainability, doesn't exist. It's that simple because we can't go about our day-to-day lives without having some form of impact. It's just thinking about what that impact looks like. And I'm sort of paraphrasing Jane Goodall, bless her, here, but it is just more mindful choices, just being a bit more conscious about what alternatives might be out there. And really just doing the best we can with the resource that we have, with the time that we have available. There's the whole bandwidth, the mental load. We're all rushing around trying to do all of the things, be all of the things to all of the people, and run businesses and families and households and all of that sort of thing. So I'm a real advocate for kindness. That's what I stand for first and foremost, is kindness. I don't, criticize anybody for not getting it perfect, because I don't. And I never claim to be perfect. I'm not. I have plastic in my home. I'm not vegan. I got on a plane last year before. In the last couple of years, I've been on a plane. It's not about judgment. It's about just trying to do the best that we can.
Yeah, I love that you're leading with kindness, kindness to ourselves,
Mm.
kindness to those around us, kindness to the planet. And if we can approach it that way, then I think it takes off some of that pressure, but it also means that we are doing things from the right place and
Absolutely.
hopefully getting things right in as much as we can. And as we learn more, we do more.
Yeah, yeah, there is, there's a bit of a hierarchy, maybe this is the best choice, maybe this is the second best choice. It's just that awareness of where to do your research. That's a big part of one or two of the sessions that I run. They've all got different themes to the sessions. So there's one around clothing and homeware, there's another one around gift shopping. So both of those have lots of kind of just where to start when you sit down and you go, right, I want to find a plastic free option of this. I want to find an organic or vegan or toxic free or pre-loved or whatever that might be. Where do I start? And those sorts of information is kind of all the sorts of things that I like to share and support with. So it's
Wonderful.
yeah.
And kind of leading on from that, then, one of your key messages is don't ever dim your light.
Mm.
Was there a time when you felt maybe that that's what you were doing? Is that maybe why this came up for you as a really important key message? And what would you say now to someone who feels called to make a difference, but is still holding themselves back in some way?
Gosh, whatever that passion is, you'll find a way. You really will, because it's just when you have that sort of calling, um, it's too strong to ignore. It's actually probably more harmful to ignore it. So I think the biggest key for me was to find my tribe. Um, there's that whole to raise a family, you need a village. To build a business, you need a community as well. And it's kind of women's networking was the place that I started because, the people like me were my target audience. I understand how busy we are, how we think, what our motives are, and that was my starting point. So, without finding women's networking, I don't know that I would, have been able to sustain a business, to be quite honest with you, because just the belief that it gave me was invaluable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And for those people who are listening and going, gosh, I need a Lyn in my life, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Thank you, Robin. So I am on Facebook and Instagram as Eco for All, and it's FOR in the middle. So eco underscore for underscore all. And on LinkedIn, I am Lyn Lapworth hyphen eco for all because I am my business. So, that is one and the same. I've also got my ecoforall.co.uk website, that's got a few more because I've got, a few different services, one-off sessions, etc. But mostly I would recommend following me on social media because that's where I talk about tips and, how we, look at things and what, how you can work with me, obviously.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that watching this episode and listening to Lyn, you're thinking, gosh, this is right up my street. I would love to connect. So please do reach out. As always, Lyn's links will be in the information below the episode. So thank you so much, Lyn. This has been incredible. And you have dropped in some little tips there that people can take away straight away and put into action. So thank you so much.
Been a real pleasure, Robin. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and maybe see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Vulnerability, Introspection and Growth. I hope it's given you a moment to breathe, reflect, and perhaps even see your own story with a little more compassion. If you find this conversation meaningful, I'd love it if you'd share, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps others find their way here too. Until next time, take gentle care, and remember, the journey inwards is where the real growth begins.